Here to posterior, we have these bones. Frontal bone, squamous part of frontal bone. Here is nasal notch, supraorbital margin. Here, parietal bone, and here, occipital bone. And laterally, we have a squamous part of temporal bone. Also, another bones which in the external view we want to assess the viscerocranium. In the viscerocranium, nasal bone, maxilla, zygomatic, inferiorly,
Mandible.
yes, we have the mandible at this area, and also we should talk about the base of the skull in the inferior view. Okay, here is inferior view of the base of the skull. So the specific features of every of this part. The first, the neurocranium, the bones of the neurocranium. Here, the frontal bone. Frontal bone has a squamous part. The squamous part has this feature: frontal tubers at this area. Here, superciliary arc. Here, glabella, supraorbital margin, supraorbital foramen at this area. Here, zygomatic process of frontal bone which attach to maxilla. Posterior to zygomatic process, you can see this line, temporal line at this area. Also at this area, you can see temporal line, which temporal line arrive to parietal bone. In the parietal bone, it made superior and inferior temporal lines at this area. Another part, when arrive to parietal bone, at this area, I see parietal tubers. Okay.
Here is the most highest
The
point.
oblium.
Vertex.
Yeah. Vertex.
Yes, the highest point here, the highest point in the sagittal suture, it is sagittal suture, it is coronal suture, lambda suture, lambda, bregma. The highest point at this area is named vertex. Here we should have two small foramen, which it is not clear in this skull. The area between parietal foramen, at this area we have
Oblion.
oblivion, yes. Go to the posterior part. In the posterior part, we see the occipital. No, I am just saying about the external feature, yes? The external feature in the occipital bone. Occipital bone has foramen magnum. According to foramen magnum, I say that we have a squamous part, here, lateral part, and basilar part. In the squamous part, external occipital protuberance, superior nuchal line at this area, and highest nuchal line. Highest nuchal line are not so clear. External occipital protuberance, external occipital crest, from external occipital protuberance to posterior border of foramen magnum. From external occipital crest, we have inferior nuchal line. Here you can see the inferior nuchal line at this area. Go to the lateral part. In the lateral part of occipital bone, in the external view, you can see condyle of occipital, posterior to condyle, condylar fossa at this area, and in the condylar fossa, condylar foramen. Below the condyle, anteriorly, when I look at this area, I can see the hypoglossal canal. Hypoglossal canal are located below the condyle. Lateral to condyle, you can see jugular process here and here, jugular process. Anterior to jugular process, this area is named jugular notch. And jugular notch attached to petrous, it is petrous part, and made jugular foramen at this area and at this area. You can see jugular foramen. When we assess the lateral part of the skull, in the lateral part, we see this structure. The first, the squamous part of temporal bone, here, mastoid part of temporal bone. Anteriorly, I see some part of greater wing of sphenic bone at this area. When I look at the inferior view, after the squamous part, I see this part. External acoustic natus, which anteriorly we have tympanic plate at this area. After tympanic plate, I see inferior surface of petrous. It is inferior surface of petrous at this level. Also, this area, I say that it is greater wing. When greater wing are inferiorly, also at this level, I see the same greater wing which contains these two foramen spinosome and foramen ovale at this area. The structure in the squamous part. In the squamous part, I have some groove which they are not seen at this area.
Not clear. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, not clear. Not clear. Maybe.
that's better.
Yes, that's it. Yes. At this area, maybe some small groove. Okay, for example, that groove. It is groove for middle temporal artery at this area. Then arrive to a crest which is named at this area supramastoid crest. Here, supramastoid crest arrive to this triangle. Supramastoid triangle. Supramastoid triangle arrive to supramatal triangle at this area. Supramatal triangle arrive to supramatal spine. Then here we have external acoustic meatus. Anterior to external acoustic meatus, I have mandibular fossa. Mandibular fossa is the site of attaching the condyle of mandible. Look at here. At this level, the condyle of mandible attached to mandibular fossa. As you can see, mandibular fossa has two parts, articulation part and non-articulation part. Non-articular part is made by anterior surface of tympanic plate. So it is tympanic plate here. Here is tympanic plate. Here is squamous part. Here, anterior to mandibular fossa, I have this tubercle. Articular tubercle. Articular tubercle made the anterior root of zygomatic process. It is zygomatic process. It is temporal process of zygoma, and they attach together to make zygomatic arc. They are the features in the squamous part. Posteriorly, we have mastoid part. Mastoid part has a root area. Posterior to mastoid part, maybe I have one or two mastoid foramen. Inferior to mastoid part, I have an elongation. This part, it is named mastoid process. Mastoid process has lateral surface. It has medial surface. In the medial surface of mastoid process, look at here, in the medial surface of mastoid process, I can see a groove. It is named occipital groove. Also, I see a notch, mastoid notch. Occipital groove, which occipital artery travel mastoid notch for attaching posterior belly of the gastric muscle. Here, inferiorly, as you can see, I have a styloid process. Between a styloid process and mastoid process, I see a foramen at this area, a stylomastoid foramen, which from a stylomastoid foramen, facial nerve exit from the skull.
Can you show it again, please?
Here, a styloid process, mastoid process.
Okay.
Between a styloid process and mastoid process, I see a stylomastoid foramen.
For 7 cranial.
For 7 cranial nerve and also a stylomastoid artery insert to the skull. Another part is this level. Look at here. This is the petrous part of temporal bone, squamous part, mastoid part. Okay? Here, tympanic plate. It was tympanic plate, and here is petrous part of temporal bone. Yes? In the petrous part of temporal bone, you can see this structure. In the petrous part, at this area we have a root area for attaching levator veli palatini. After this root area, here I can see external opening of carotid canal, which internal carotid artery inserts to this external opening, and then at this area I have a fossa. This fossa maybe is more clear at this area. Look at here. the fossa is more clear here. You see,
Yeah.
it is named jugular fossa. Jugular fossa of
This one, sir.
petrous part. It is petrous part. It is jugular fossa. Jugular fossa attached to jugular notch of occipital and made this foramen. It made jugular foramen at this area. After petrous part, we assess another part in the skull.
So we can-
Another part in the skull is the sphenoid bone. The sphenoid bone here, sphenoid bone, at the inferior view, the body of sphenoid attached to ala of vomer bone. Here is vomer bone, they are ala of vomer bone. The body of sphenoid posteriorly attached to basilar part of occipital bone. 1 centimeter anterior to foramen magnum,
Horizon.
we have a tubercle, pharyngeal tubercle. Pharyngeal tubercle is located in the inferior surface of the base of the basilar part of occipital. Laterally, look at here, when the petrous part arrived to sphenoid bone at this area made this foramen. Foramen lacerum, okay? Foramen lacerum between the apex of petrous and the sphenoid. Here we have foramen
Which
lacerum.
passes male?
What?
Male pass from here?
No. Foramen lacerum is covered.
Tunnel curve.
At this area in the alive people, foramen lacerum is covered by the fibrous tissues. Male passes from foramen ovale. Male passes from this foramen. Yes, foramen ovale. So, inferiorly, I say that here we have the body of sphenoid here. Body of sphenoid which attached to ala of vomer. Lateral to ala of vomer, here we have medial plate. Look at here. Medial plate. Here, lateral plate of sphenoid. At posterior view, between medial plate and lateral plate, we have pterygoid fossa. Here, pterygoid fossa at this area and pterygoid fossa at this area, which medial pterygoid attached to pterygoid fossa. Posterior to medial plate, we have another fossa which is named scaphoid fossa at this area and at this area. Scaphoid fossa, that tensor veli palatini attached to this fossa. Anterior to medial plate, look at here, it is medial plate. Anteriorly, we have perpendicular plate of palatine bone. Look at here, medial plate, anterior to medial plate, perpendicular plate of palatine bone. Okay? Here, horizontal plate of palatine bone. Okay? Here is hamulus of medial plate. Medial plate inferiorly made pterygoid hamulus at this area and at this area. Between medial plate and lateral plate, at this area we have a fissure. Okay? Medial, lateral, this fissure. Look at this fissure. You see? This is named pterygoid fissure. Pterygoid fissure is covered by this process. By pyramidal process of palatine bone. This is pyramidal process, which fills pterygoid fissure. Here, horizontal plate of palatine bone, and here is palatine process of maxilla. Horizontal plate of palatine bone has greater palatine foramen here and here, greater palatine foramen. Also, the pyramidal process maybe has a small palatine foramen. A small palatine foramen, a lesser palatine foramen, yes, greater palatine foramen. Okay?
Okay.
They are the structure in this part, in the inferior view. Another structure which you should know at this area are this fossa. Temporal fossa, here is temporal fossa. The borders of temporal fossa is temporal line of frontal bone and made superior temporal line, and here supramastoid crest at this area, superior border of zygomatic arc. It is temporal fossa. In the floor of temporal fossa, when a squamous part of frontal plate attached to here greater wing of sphenoid, squamous of temporal and parietal bone, This area is named pterion at this level.
وجهها
Here we have pterion. Inferior to temporal fossa, it is temporal fossa. Inferior to temporal fossa, I have infratemporal fossa. Look at here. Look at here. When I remove the ramus of mandible, okay? When I remove the ramus of mandible, this fossa is named infratemporal fossa. The infratemporal fossa anteriorly is covered by body of maxilla. Body of maxilla has these features. Look at here. Maxillary tuberosity. At this area you can see maxillary tuberosity. Also here we have lateral surface of lateral plate of pterygoid process. It is pterygoid process, lateral plate. Look at, we have a fissure at this area. Here. At this level, we have a fissure which is named pterygomaxillary fissure. In the depths of this fissure, we should have pterygopalatine fossa, which pterygopalatine fossa is not clear in this skull. Okay? Superior. Here is superior wall. Superior wall is made by zygomatic arc, this space between zygomatic arc and the skull, and also greater wing. Look at here, it is greater wing. It is greater wing at all of this area we have greater wing. In the superior wall we have this foramen ovale and foramen lacerum, foramen spinosum. Foramen ovale, foramen spinosum are located in the greater wing, and they are located in the superior wall or in the roof of the infratemporal fossa. Posterior wall is free, inferior wall is free. Okay, the medial wall is lateral plate of pterygoid process and a small part of pyramidal process of palatine bone. It is a medial plate. Come to the anterior. Here we have zygoma. The zygoma at this level has a foramen. Zygomatico-facial foramen. Zygoma at this level have zygomatico-orbital foramen. Posteriorly, when I look at this area, we should have zygomatico-temporal foramen. The zygoma has this process: frontal process and temporal process of zygoma. Anteriorly, we arrive to maxilla. It is anterior surface of maxilla. Here we have infraorbital foramen. Then here we have nasal notch. Here anterior nasal spine. Where is posterior nasal spine? Here. It is posterior nasal spine. It is anterior nasal spine. Here superior to incisive, we have incisive fossa. This eminence is named canine eminence here, and this fossa lateral to canine eminence is canine fossa. Okay, the structure at the anterior surface of body of maxilla. Here is alveolar process of maxilla. Look at here, two alveolar process attached together and made alveolar arc. Here palatine process of maxilla. Two palatine process attached together at this area made this fossa, incisive fossa, which from incisive fossa we have incisive canal which arrive to nasal cavity. Another part. Here we have nasal bone superiorly attached to frontal. At this level we have nasion. Okay, nasion. After nasal we have another process of maxilla, frontal process. Frontal process of maxilla has this feature. Look at here. It is anterior lacrimal crest. Here, this fossa, this bone is lacrimal bone. This fossa between lacrimal bone and frontal process is named fossa for lacrimal gland at this area and at this area. Fossa for lacrimal sac. Fossa for lacrimal sac. Where is lacrimal fossa? When I see the orbit, look at the orbit. The orbit has this feature. It has superior wall, lateral wall, inferior wall, medial wall. In the superior wall of the orbit, I can see the orbital plate of frontal bone. in the orbital plate of frontal bone. Anterolaterally at this area and at this area we have a fossa, lacrimal fossa, which lacrimal gland insert to lacrimal fossa. Anteromedially at this level and at this level, if you touch, you can see this a small spine. It is named trochlear spine. Anterolaterally, trochlear spine. Anterolaterally, lacrimal fossa. Anteromedially, trochlear spine. Okay, it is superior wall. In the inferior wall, we have zygoma and maxilla. In the maxilla, you can see this groove, infraorbital groove at this area and at this area, which infraorbital groove arrives to infraorbital foramen. Lateral wall is made by, look at here, greater wing of sphenoid and zygoma. Inferior wall, zygoma, maxilla, and a small part of palatine bone, orbital process. Medial wall is made by here, frontal process of maxilla, lacrimal, here, orbital plate of ethmoid, and at the posterior part, some part of body of sphenoid, here is medial part. It is optic groove, here, superior orbital fissure at this area, inferior orbital fissure at this area. Okay, inferior orbital fissure, superior orbital fissure, and optic groove at this level. Another structure at this area which you should know in the external view of a skull. This feature. Yes.
Doctor, what about this one?
About?
What was?
The styloid process. I say that it is a styloid process. It is mastoid process. This foramen between a styloid and mastoid is a stylomastoid. Another part is mandible. Look at the mandible. The mandible has these features.